I don't think there's ever been a more exciting time for an entrepreneur than today, because without the millions of dollars, without the servers and everything else, you can make a dent in the world. You can make people's lives better. You can provide a better service at a more affordable price with capabilities that we couldn't have imagined. And it just doesn't get more exciting than to think about what we might do over these next 10 years with AI-powered legal practices.
Today on Law Next, John Tredennick, a true pioneer in legal technology who continues to blaze new trails with his latest startup, Merlin Digital Magic, where he is CEO, and through the Merlin Legal Open Source Foundation, where he is executive director. John's legal and technology acumen has earned him numerous awards over the years, including being named by the American Lawyer as one of the top 6 e-discovery Trailblazers, named to the FastCase 50 as a legal visionary, and named one of the top 100 global legal technology leaders by London CityTech magazine. And he even has his own podcast, Tar Talk, where I assume he's talking about some sticky black substance used to pave roads, but we'll find out more about that as well. This is Bob Ambrogi, and you're listening to Law Next, the podcast that features the innovators and entrepreneurs who are driving what's next in law. Before we get to my interview with John Tredennick, let's hear from the sponsors who generously support Law Next. And now on to my interview with John Tredennick. John Tredennick, very happy to have you on the show.
What a pleasure, Bob. And even in this COVID era, we're not that far apart, me being in one part of New Hampshire and you just in northern Massachusetts. I wish we could be together, but we will be virtually for the next half hour.
Yeah.
And as you know, I'm from Colorado, so when we talk tar, it's not about road stuff. It's about that special derivative from cannabis, and it's a how-to program, right?
Right. Good. Well, I'm glad you can share some of your Colorado knowledge. We need it. We need it here in Massachusetts now that it's legal here too.
There you go.
And I, in the interest of full disclosure, I should say that I worked for you for 7 years as a consultant to Catalyst on communications and marketing initiatives from 2010 to 2017, and I live to tell about it. Here I am, still standing. So,
well, I like to say we work together. I don't know about the 4, but gosh, we've known each other for maybe 30 years, going back to the early days of the ABA when I was just a young pup as a trial lawyer, trying to figure out how these computers, these newfangled computers, might make my life as a trial lawyer a little better. What a way to start a career. I had no idea other than that I go to one of these meetings with you experts out there and you'd tell me, use Labor Beater 101. I'd say that's the one, and I'd go back and tear them up in the labor courts.
Well, you almost foreshadowed my first question I wanted to ask you, because I was thinking about that fact that I don't know exactly when you got involved in legal tech, but I know that in 30 years ago, you edited the ABA book, Winning with Computers, Trial Practice in the 21st Century, which was a best-selling ABA book. And we're at this point right now, over the past year in particular, in which there has been so much talk about perhaps the pandemic causing an acceleration in adoption of legal technology and an acceleration of the move to the cloud. And just curious, in the big picture sense, what's been your perspective on that? Given that you can look back over 30 years, how far do you think the legal profession has come in its adoption of technology, and how far do we still have to go?
Well, it was actually 2 books, and I really was asked to put them
together. And a number of books you wrote, yeah.
Well, 2 on Winning with Computers, volumes 1 and 2. And my whole goal was to go to those lawyers who were using computers effectively. I was the non-expert back then, with a desire to figure out what they were doing, how it worked, and how I might use it. And I just turned that into the books. And the funny thing is, if we go back to those books, which I still have copies of, you'd see a laptop on there that looks like an old clunker. which was the latest black and white laptop there was. But what I'd say to you, kind of in answer to your question, is if you went through the pages of the books, you'd see we were talking about so many of the same things we're using today. Now, in that world, we were storing documents on laser discs, if you remember. Or we were talking about whether a 56 baud modem was enough for a big law firm to connect. But the point I'd make is the book is full of databases, communication, collaboration, connections that we're still perfecting or smoothing or honing today, and yet it's not that different. Now, clearly the world's changed a lot in those 30 years, but I think the fundamental changes were the rate at which we could interconnect, right? My firm had 10 offices in those days, and we connected offices with 56 baud or bits or whatever, right?
Right.
Very slow. But the rate of connectivity combined with the power of the chips, and they just made the visions real. We talked about drag and dictate in those days,
Right.
a person talking to his computer. Now I talk to my phone all day long and Siri talks back to me. So at one level, you got to say, it's not that it's different in the way, shape, or form. It's just so smooth now.
Yeah. We're still talking about the same things, but we're doing it better.
Yes. But there are externalities of the collaboration that just change everything. I remember carrying, they were the pilot cases, if you remember, the square box cases. And I'd be taking 2 to a deposition, getting on a plane. My arms would hurt. Some people went to rollers, but they were heavy, and you cart that along with a backpack, and just so you'd have all the transcripts and the exhibits and things ready. And now we don't have to do anything like that. And in fact, we don't even have to get on the planes anymore with Zoom. So it's amazing how much has changed. And I just want to get the point across that much of this we envisioned back in 1990, if not sooner.
Yeah.
And that's fun to think about.
Yeah, it is fun to think about. Actually, I make that point sometimes when people think they're talking about some of these concepts for the first time in the last couple of years. And no, we've been talking about them for a number of years. But going back to that, you alluded to your law firm. You were a litigator, a partner with the firm Holland and Hart in Denver. And in 2000, you left your law firm to start a company originally called Case Share, later called Catalyst Repository Systems. Last year, Catalyst was sold to OpenText.
Yep.
And you've gone on to start another company, as I said. But so before we get to what you're now doing, I'd like to go back and just kind of ask, if you can go back to 2000, what was it that made you want to leave your law firm and become an entrepreneur and start down this legal technology road? What were you looking to do and accomplish?
Well, here's the fun thing, Bob. I didn't leave the law firm. I convinced them to spin off a subsidiary. And we got a lot of news about that, or a lot of press about that. We weren't the only ones to do it. John Alber was doing something like that. Mm-hmm. Arnold and Porter became kind of famous in the early days for spinning off a lobbying subsidiary. But I convinced them to spin off a subsidiary. Why was that? We had started building systems to connect our 10 offices just in the early to mid 90s. And when the internet hit, and we discovered a tool called Cold Fusion, which is a database that you can distribute over the web, it just opened the doors for all kinds of collaboration systems, even over 56 baud modems. So the next thing you know, we were hooking other firms together, dealing with very big cases. There was one involving the entire oil and gas industry. It was called the Greinberg cases. He was claiming everybody was mismeasuring gas at the wellhead, suing for trillions of dollars on a Ketam case. And I said, why don't we use these tools that we were using to connect litigation departments in the 10 offices why couldn't we put them outside the firewall, lock them down, and connect law firms? And the funny thing was, I threw that idea out to a partner who passed it along. And the next thing you know, I'm a corner office law partner filling out an RFP for the provision of technology services. And I remember to this day, Bob, they'd gotten some consultant to write it up. And at the bottom of it, in all big letters, it said, "This contract is for the provision of technology services only. No legal relationship is intended," or whatever. And I'm laughing, saying, I'm a tech mogul here in my law office. And to take it on, Bob, we won that and started providing kind of paperless collaboration to hundreds of players. And then these guys in the firm started calling us for other cases. And suddenly we're off to the races. And I realized that we could have a situation where somebody representing Walmart, I'm making that name up, hires our extranets, which is what we called them at the time, and is paying me $50 a month for the extranet. And yet one of the lawyers in my Boise office has a giant case to bring against Walmart. And Walmart would say, "No, you can't take that case. That's a conflict. We're a client of Holland and Hart." And I said, "Guys, we need to spin this off into a separate business. We need the ability to raise money, possibly. We need to grow it. We want to get rid of conflicts." And darn if I didn't sell them. My first entrepreneurial job was to convince them to back me. So I went off and continued as a partner of Holland and Hart, running a subsidiary, one of the first subsidiaries of a law firm.
Yeah, and what, it was about 5 years later that was it 5 years later that they then,
it was 5.
They got out of it like 5 years later, right?
5 years later, the then chairman of the firm called me and said, "John, we'd like you to buy us out." I said, "Why? We're doing great now. We had a couple of struggling years, but we were doing fine." And he said, "We just don't understand what to do with a business like this. We got partners claiming that they own parts of it and they leave. They want their check for $20 million. And of course, it's not worth that. And there are all these conflicts, and you're growing and maybe we're going to raise some funds then." And they asked me to buy them out. And they were nice enough to give me a 5-year return as a partner on my signature kind of thing, which expired in about 2010. And I looked at that with sadness, thinking I'm just one wrong turn away from living under a bridge now. I don't have my safety net, but I did give it up, and that was the end of that. But I bought them out with some help, and it was good all around. And I'm a proud alumni of Holland and Hart, but no longer able to come back and be a partner.
Yeah. How did the company evolve from the kind of the extranet concept that you were talking about to being an e-discovery technology company?
Well, we've always had two strains. Building compliance systems for big companies. We built an ad review system for Sears, a labor management system for Albertsons. Then I built a half dozen workflow systems for AIG, but we also had built our own internal litigation support system. And frankly, that happened for one reason. It was 1995, Windows 95 had come out. I was acting as CTO of the firm. I'd put us on Windows 95. Microsoft did videos about us. Adobe
I hope
did,
they're off of there now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But at the time, we were using Summation, and Summation didn't run on Windows, and particularly Windows 95. So this is the dumbest thing I ever said, but I looked at it and I said, "Damn, I can't, put my people on Summation. It doesn't work. This can't be that hard. We'll just build our own litigation system." If I'd known how hard it was, I never would have tried to do that. But I felt stuck, and it was many years before Summation ran well on Windows.
Yeah. One of the defining aspects of Catalyst, pretty early on was that it was cloud-based technology at a point when nobody was talking about the cloud much or even really knew what the cloud was, and at a point when a lot of legal professionals were still very much skeptical of the cloud. As a matter of fact, many of them still are at this point, maybe less so after this year. But what was your thinking in putting your technology out there on the cloud, and what were kind of the obstacles that you had to overcome in kind of selling that to the legal market?
Well, there were lots of obstacles, Bob. To even understand it, you've got to try to put your head back into the 90s when people were still skeptical about email, and some of my partners were having their secretaries print them out. But I was looking at that world in the late 90s at obvious things. My strength is not that I'm smarter than anybody or brilliant. Maybe I can see the obvious, but you could see that the volumes of data were increasing and would increase rapidly in the years to come. Heck, Bob, in those days, a big case had 5,000 documents or 10, and now they're 10 million. You could see them increasing. You could see the need for people to work together across firms. And it became obvious that you couldn't have any one firm put its hardware to use and have everybody connect, because what if that firm crapped out or settled their case? What do you do? So it was obvious that the only answer to this problem lay in the cloud and in cloud-based systems where you could invest in industrial-grade databases and hardware and storage and put the security practices in. So frankly, it was just a natural. We were doing that because it was the only practical way to connect our 10 offices around the Rockies and in DC. And then when we were doing the Grindberg cases, we were connecting hundreds of players. It was the only way. Now, we were going up against summation and concordance and other players that were building software on a CD and counting on people to load it. I just knew it was going the other way. And that's the only approach we were going to take, was right in the cloud.
Yeah. Do you think there was a point when others began to see as clearly as you did that it was going another way? I mean, look at relativity, for example, which has continued to remain an industry leader and probably still a dominant industry leader. It's been moving to the cloud, but for a long time it was just an on-premises software, and you were kind of going up against them as a dominant leader. Do you think there was a point at which the industry started to turn your way and see the value of the cloud?
I do, Bob. You have one thing in common, at least with Andrew Secha, and that is both of you worked for me. Andrew worked for me in 2001.
I forgot that. I did know that.
When we were just getting started. We're old friends. I think the world of Andrew. And he went on happily, no disputes, and built a replacement for summation and concordance. And I'd have to say Andrew is smarter than me. Well, I can say that. That's easy. And he may have been smarter because he knew that intuitively it was going to take years for the legal profession to realize their future was in the cloud. And he did one heck of a job of building a fill-in for it to take the place of summation and concordance. And I was not the only one who believed in the cloud.
No.
There were others hosting. And as you know, many service providers would take, in effect, a cloud position by buying and setting up relativity and then offering it via the internet. Right. So it was a mixed bag no matter how you looked at it. But for many lawyers, they're kind of drag kicking and screaming into that next generation. But I think once the volumes really kicked up, and maybe we could tie this to 2005 and 6, when you will recall that the federal rules were changed to kind of recognize and coin the term ESI. I think it was about then that the law firms began to realize that trying to manage terabytes of data, servers, provide support, etc., was a losing game, a losing battle. And they began moving more and more to the litigation support vendors who would provide what I'd call quasi-cloud. I mean, the next big change, and we'll get there, is the movement from not just hosting in a data center over the wires, but the public cloud and the radically different and enhanced things it can offer. It's not just a move up by a point. It's a whole level move up, the public cloud and what it offers. And we'll get to that, I'm sure.
Yeah. And probably another major factor in all of that was the kind of the globalization of law practice, of litigation matters, and the need to be able to address these issues on a global basis from wherever you happen to be working and located.
Well, you're dead right. The big eye-opener for me was in 2000 when Tom Friedman wrote that seminal book, The Earth is Flat, and it just floored me. I mean, it moved me. It crystallized everything I'd been thinking. When they laid fiber between India and the U.S., and of course between the U.S. and Europe or China, it did make the Earth so much smaller. And it meant that individuals no longer had a massive barrier between their knowledge and their willingness to work, or their skills, and that job, which had to come with a visa and a plane flight, et cetera, right? So that happened, and you had, frankly, British law firms who I think had a much more international view of the legal world than the New Yorkers did, the New York law firms. And so while we were kind of comfortable and happy with our U.S. work and our New York work, they were busy colonizing the world and offering the not just a large skill set, but also the ability to service your needs anywhere. And as we both know, they were right, and that's taken off. And frankly, the U.S. firms have either are playing catch up, or they got swallowed up by the DLA Pipers or the bigger international firms. All of that required a move to the cloud for collaboration purposes.
Yeah. This is going to almost bring us into the present, which I'm not meaning to jump into the present, but I think that one of the ways in which I always thought that Catalyst was among the more pioneering companies was in its early adoption of artificial intelligence technology, of technology-assisted review, in helping to expedite and make more efficient the review of all this data in an e-discovery matter. And in particular, you were an early proponent of a protocol called continuous active learning at Catalyst. Why was that important? What was it that you saw in that technology, and why did it make a difference in the industry?
Well, I think it was one of the biggest game changers that we'd faced in this evolution of dealing with increased volumes, increased distances. So if you were to think about for a moment the history of the litigation expansion, of course, we went from cases fitting in red wells to cases in filing cabinets to those much feared or hated document warehouses, always in New Jersey.
Right. Might even be some listeners who don't know what a red well is at this point. I don't know.
Yeah, the little folders that I could carry home and
right.
look through my documents and prepare a case. But as the volumes increased, we began offshoring to have people do the reviews and to code them and tag them. And we looked for ways to search things more quickly. But still the volumes increased. And it was harnessing AI to not just review quicker, but to reduce the populations dramatically that provided the big breakthrough, at least in these biggest cases. So we were not the first to harness AI. There are people ahead of us, but they made up what I called the TAR 1.0 generation. It's like the dancing bear phenomenon. You know, it's not how well the bear danced, but that the bear could dance at all. Those first generation AIs could do some great things, but we were blessed in bringing over Dr. Jeremy Pickens from the Xerox Fuji Park Research Center, and he looked at what people were doing and said, well, they're doing it wrong. Why don't we design an engine that would work more like Pandora and allow us to continually train as people were reviewing? And in doing so, we could drastically make the engine smarter and reduce the populations. It did work, we had to go out and convince people, along with two other pioneers, Maura Grossman and Gordon Cormack, working separately. We didn't even know them at the time, but they had seen this and were developing or had developed the continuous learning system as well. And we had to go convince the industry that the thing they thought they knew might not be that true, as Mark Twain would say. And so I'm proud that we pioneered continuous active learning and the TAR 2.0 revolution. And when we get there, I'll tell you, I'm proud to be pioneering the TAR 3.0.
Yeah, well, we can start to move there. But just that Pandora analogy, for anybody who doesn't understand, I mean, the idea, right, is you click on this document and say, yeah, I like this one. This is relevant. This is relevant to what I'm working on. And the system learns from that. And no, I don't like this one. And the system learns from that. And it's as easy as that.
Yeah, I like to say that this continuous active learning or this modern AI is like Pandora, only when you click thumbs up, it brings back great documents rather than great music.
Yeah. For as much as John accomplished over the past 20 years, and for as much as technology evolved during that period, John believes the next 10 or 20 years will blow the doors off anything we've seen so far. When we come back, we'll hear why John chose to start a new company rather than retire after selling Catalyst. Welcome back to Law Next. In the first part of the show, John Tredennick told us how he started and built Catalyst as one of the first cloud-based e-discovery companies, and how the company helped pioneer the use of AI to improve search results in massive collections of legal documents. In the next part of the show, John explains why he thinks the biggest advances in legal technology are still to come. Well, all right, so we can kind of turn to what you're up to now. I do have to ask. I mean, your company was acquired last year. I'm sure you made some money out of that. You're at an age where it would be respectable for you to retire. So why didn't you just hang it up and go pursue your various hobbies? And I know you have a number of hobbies. Why did you want to start another company?
Well, I tell you, Bob, I am 67, and I think plenty of people would think about retiring, but I looked inward and I said, I'm too young to retire. I can't do that yet. But the real answer is this. As exciting as the past 20 years have been, and I did Catalyst for almost 20 years, and you and I together saw so many changes, including TAR 1.0 and 2.0, but as exciting as all that was, these next 10 or 20 years are going to blow the doors off. I mean, there's so much more happening now. It's tied to the public cloud. It's tied to the true worldwide network. It's tied to these advances in AI. And I looked and said, I don't want to just sit on the sidelines and watch it or say, I told you so, or, hey, I predicted that in Winning with Computers. I want to be part of it. I want to be part of it. So rather than look at it as an ending, I looked at it as a beginning of a new 20-year chapter, if you will. So yeah, I did get a nice check, and it allowed me to do nothing or do what I want. And so I picked two things to put my efforts into: the formation of Merlin Digital Magic, which I named because I believe software is the magic of the 21st century. You know, and I've kidded with you and others to say, back in the days of King Arthur and his round table, Merlin would make fireballs and other kinds of magic, and to all the knights and then the commoners, it was magic. But we know that back in his cave, he wasn't making magic. He just knew you could mix certain chemicals together and fire would result. Well, we mentioned Siri. When I pick up the phone and talk to Siri and she gives me directions to your house, that's magic to me. That's 21st century magic. And we all know that it's really just a well-written software. It's ones and zeros acting as we hope they will. But that's the magic of today. And so I formed Merlin Digital Magic because I wanted to build that kind of magic. I wanted to be part of it. And I was fortunate to be able to get together with some of my guys. And what we did was we looked at this as a chance to throw everything we had done away. I mean, we had 5 data centers with millions of dollars worth of servers. I don't want to ever own another server. We're dedicated to the public cloud. And to take advantage of the new revolution in software delivery, open source, to use those tools and to knit them together and be part of that community to frankly build far better software than we ever could with proprietary stuff. And so we dedicated ourselves to making this magic in the cloud where we could deliver it at scale anywhere in the world using these incredible open source tools and then offering pricing consistent with this digital revolution where people can consume in the ways they want to. Imagine a next generation AI litigation support system that you could use by the day or the week or the month, and you didn't have to sign long-term commitments, or if you wanted to do that, you could get substantial discounts. So I wanted to be part of it, Bob, even if I got nowhere, even if I fell on my face, I wanted to be part of this future that is happening around us.
Well, knowing you, that's not likely to happen. But and then the Merlin Foundation is a 501c3, right? Foundation set up to promote the use of open source software in legal technology. Right?
Well, and that's right. And that was also my passion, was to give back to the community and the industry. Even at Catalyst, we were using increasing amounts of open source software. And Bob, you know that Linux is used probably more widely than Windows. Yep. And so many in the legal world didn't understand that. And they would think, well, Windows or pick your proprietary software, that's backed by a real company and they have real developers. And I want to say to them, well, even Windows, maybe a few hundred developers, 17,000 developers have worked on Linux and made it the most rock solid, fast, lightweight operating system, the backbone of the internet. And so at Catalyst, we were using open source tools, things like Elasticsearch, the MySQL databases and the like. They're all out there and many other vendors are using them. Yeah. But the legal world's nervous. And I said, well, first of all, we got involved in the open source and I found there was no home for open source. There was no group that was bringing the efforts together and promoting them. And I said,
in legal, you mean, or even more broadly?
In legal. Yeah. Open source is the dominant way software is developed today, but not in legal. Just disparate efforts. Great people offering their tools up as open source. So I said, it's time to form a foundation. It's time to provide a home for those people around the world building in open source tools for legal, to improve access to justice, to make the practice more efficient. So we formed that as well. And we're very excited about the things we're doing there as well.
So you said you're excited about the magic that's going to be happening over the next 10 years and beyond in this area. What are you seeing there? What do you think what's the promise? What's going to be coming down the pike? What are you working on now?
Well, your timing for your question's right. We've been quiet about this for a while, but we are about to release the next generation of a litigation support platform I call Merlin Integrated Search. And what makes it magic is Sherlock. Sherlock is the first AI-powered digital document bloodhound. And the integration is this. We've got a system now, and we're going to release a system where you can still be comfortable with your keyword search and build any keyword search you want. But imagine a world where you run a keyword search, and as you know, and I think the audience knows, it can be good in some cases and bad in others, but you're looking through the results. Maybe you see a bunch of misses, but on document 10, you hit one that's very important to your case. Think about a world where right from that spot, you could click on Sherlock and let loose the best digital bloodhound on the planet to go find more documents like you're looking for. Not using keyword, but using the power of AI. Frankly, using the power of continuous active learning, but we've devised a way to integrate it in because Sherlock can rank 500 million documents with a big server in 4 minutes, which means in our cases, in milliseconds, it can look at the document you've seen, rank everything else on your site, and start feeding you relevant documents. And it works. It works incredibly well. So this
what does that speed mean? Can you put that in perspective in terms of what that speed, how that compares to what's out there now?
Well, at Catalyst, we could rank 1 million documents in 5 minutes, and we're proud of it. 500 million in 4 minutes is light years away. And this platform will be used for all kinds of purposes beyond e-discovery. For example, and the algorithm is developed by the other two leading algorithm scientists, Maura Grossman and Gordon Cormack, who we've known for years and worked in parallel.
And who are both up at the University of Waterloo.
Yes. Yeah. And as you know, because you did a post on this, the Canadian government and the health department of Canada asked them to use Sherlock, or use the algorithm I named Sherlock, for COVID research, COVID-19. And they collected 40 million documents, medical documents from the med lines and everything else, and started using the algorithm to track down research. It was a huge success. There are case studies about it, and other organizations are looking to use it. So my vision is way beyond e-discovery, but it is purpose-built. I mean, it works perfectly for the lawyers that used to be my partners, who don't want to master Boolean search, don't want to become keyword wizards, but they know what they like. So a thumbs up, and you tell Sherlock, this is great, I want more. And a thumbs down means, oh, you're getting off track, Sherlock. Get right back on it, and let's go find what we need. You're going to use it not just for big production reviews or that kind of thing. You're going to use it getting ready for a deposition. You're going to use it trying to figure out whether you've got an angle on the case, early case assessment. Investigators are going to be excited to be in a world where they can upload their documents and then let Sherlock help them go find what they need.
And as you indicated earlier, your company is focused not just on e-discovery, but on regulatory compliance, investigations, other kinds of purposes. Does Sherlock play into those other areas as well?
Well, it sure can. So I mentioned that we had built compliance workflow systems for companies like AIG and Sears and Wyndham and the like. And I've seen a pattern of workflow that is not unlike e-discovery. So we recently, our first platform was built working with Dara Tarkowski, Martin Tully of the Actuate law firm to help their clients who collect on credit card debt. They buy it up from the banks and they have to collect across the country, but they want to do it lawfully. They don't want to violate any rules. So we built a system working with these great lawyers to allow them to audit the collection agencies and flag problem letters or communications and the like. And the funny thing about it was just like e-discovery. Here's what I mean. You've got to collect these thousands of letters. You've got to upload them into a system. You've got to extract the text and process them. We actually run AI type rules and algorithms to find problem letters. I mean, for example, Bob, if the letter has the word mom and jail within 3, you probably have an issue there, or mother in jail, I should say. And then they want to be able to search them, review them, show they've audited them. There are no productions in that one, but you see the parallel with e-discovery. So our vision was to build one central platform, connecting everything by APIs so that we could move these capabilities in and out, whether it's for e-discovery or FOIA requests or, almost you name it, situations requiring workflow, search, and artificial intelligence. And it seems to be right on.
Yeah. Curious, what about language? I mean, one of the issues that I know regularly confronted at Catalyst was the ability to use these tools across different languages, and particularly some of the more difficult or more
challenging,
more challenging, not non-U.S. type languages. How are you addressing that now?
Well, that's important to us for two reasons. One of which is we, and you and I together, pioneered the multi-language discovery. I don't mean we're the only ones, but we were doing it back in 2008.
I wrote about it. I didn't do it.
Yeah, it was in 2008 and 2009 and 2010. Yep. So there weren't many doing it. And I think we were acclaimed as the best at those challenging languages. We had data centers in Asia, offices there. So it was important to me, but there's a second reason. We are delivering our software through the cloud. And my vision is to enable a user anywhere in the world to fill out an online form and attach a credit card and use our systems. So we have to be language both agnostic, but language sophisticated. And there's no magic here. The AI tools we've got and the search tools we have will support any and all languages. There are techniques for that you and I know about, tokenization, that go beyond this podcast. But yes, it's very important to me, and I intend to distribute this worldwide. And the beauty is, using the Amazon cloud, they have more regions set up in more countries. So with a push of the button, I could be in Australia, I could be in Japan or China or Bahrain. I was just looking at that for some Middle Eastern work. And you probably know that in the days of Catalyst, when we had data centers and servers, they were, to be frank, like boat anchors. I had people in Australia wanting to work with us, but they wanted the data in Australia. Well, that was $1.5 million commitment for us to set up, get the data centers for 5 years, buy all the servers, get them installed, get them going. And that's daunting because you didn't even know for sure you had business. Maybe it was one client. In the world we're in now, we can build these shared nothing environments for any client with a push of a button.
Yeah.
With a push of a button. And that's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
That's part of the revolution. That's why I couldn't retire, because I could see the convergence of all these factors coming together that would change the world.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be part of it.
Yeah. So you alluded to this earlier, and what you just talked about relates to this also. But what are the implications of all of this for how you price this technology? Are there ways to change the model for how this technology is priced in this market?
I think there are, and we're going to find out very soon. We're in beta now, and I'm aiming at public release mid-January. There are two things I want to revolutionize or reinvent. One of them is Sherlock, which we've talked about, which I believe will change search and make keyword search go to the back burner, if you will. Not that you'll never use it, but you won't use it much when you've got Sherlock. But I also think I can offer true cloud pricing. Now, there are a lot of vendors in the cloud that are pricing it the old way. You take it by the month, or you have to buy this capacity or buy the gig. My dream, and I think it's very real, will be that you can log in, put a credit card in, and you could use this resource for hours or days. Imagine a world where you could use it for a case for 3 weeks, and then maybe you've got a hiatus, or you're waiting for a ruling from the judge. You could shut it down for 3 weeks and fire it back up and pay for what you use at a price, because I can keep my operating costs low. I can match them up, that I think will be very competitive. I'm not going to give it away. We have to make money too. But I think we can really change the way you think of it on one end. And then we talk about the other end. We can offer tremendous discounts for clients who take the resources for a year or 3 years and prepay. And what you're getting is an environment that might have a 50% discount or more that you can use. And here's the wild thing. Most lawyers in the Catalyst days would think of a case and say, well, I can't sign up for a year because, gosh, my case could settle tomorrow. Then I'd be embarrassed with the client. What would I say? And the answer today is, No, you're not taking a case. You're taking these resources that are configured for the size and the capacity and the speed you want. And if your case settles, you just shut that down and fire up the next case or cases. And as a firm, you could take the resources for 3 years, knowing that you've got a set number of cases, a need, you've got a history. If suddenly it spikes up and you need more, you just fire those up month to month, or add to it if you need to. But the cases go in and out. And what this means is I can solve a problem that I spent 20 years struggling with. We had clients that, as we started our discussion, they said, I don't know about this cloud. I want to control it. I want to have it behind my firewall. We're building these in what I call shared nothing environments now. It's the way we architected it. It's not multi-tenant. Each client will have a set of resources that are theirs alone. And what that means is for a client that really needed it, this is like putting it behind the firewall, only they don't have to buy any hardware, load software, manage or support it, but everything's encrypted and they literally can control the keys. In other words, they could keep us out if that's what they wanted. And so what a magic thing that if you're a managing partner of a firm, you've got resources available that you can be conservative and take small numbers or more expansive, but you can take the resources, you can get a tremendous discount, you can use them as you want. I mean, you could have a case active on it for a month and then pull it off and put another case on. These are the kind of revolutionary things that I think we're hitting in 2020. And that's why I didn't retire. I thought I got to be part of it. Yeah. I want to offer it. I honestly want to disrupt what's become a bit staid, this world of legal e-discovery, investigations, and make it a worldwide phenomenon that really serves small firms as well as big firms.
Yeah. So you get the security of on-prem with the elasticity of the cloud with pricing that's fairer all around. Sounds like a win-win-win right there. But
that's good. Have you ever thought about marketing or communications, Bob?
I've done some of that. Yeah. So I need to let you go, John. I know we've been going longer than I promised you I would keep you, but I just kind of I want to ask another kind of general question, only because you've been at this for a while, and you're now starting off on a new course of founding a startup and entrepreneurship. There are so many younger people who are getting into starting legal tech companies now, becoming founders, becoming entrepreneurs. And I just wonder if you have any words of wisdom to impart from your years of experience in starting and building and selling and starting again a legal tech company.
Well, it's funny you ask that, because just by coincidence, I gave a lecture to Bill Hamilton's class at the University of Florida Law School yesterday. And we were talking about Sherlock and this new way of searching and other things. And there were about 50. So you can picture the Zoom screen. And I kind of got overwhelmed at the end thinking about the questions you're asking. And I said to the group, I said, listen, when I started out, I found myself asking why and challenging why not about a lot of things, right down to the first legal memo files. And I said, my advice to you is when you get out of school and wherever you go to a firm or a government agency or a company or business or anything else, push yourself, not just to show up and do a good job, but to really change how things are done, to move us into the future, to stick your neck out and see what you can do to make it better for everybody, the clients, your colleagues, etc. And so my advice would be the same to any entrepreneur or young tech person. Don't look at the status or the state of the market today and say, I want to do that too. You're going to succeed if you're taking them where you know it needs to be. I mean, I hate to haul out the somewhat trite Gretzky quote, but he wasn't great because he knew where the puck was. He was great because he knew where it's going to be. So I don't think there's ever been a more exciting time for an entrepreneur than today, because without the millions of dollars, without the servers and everything else, you can make a dent in the world. You can make people's lives better. You can provide a better service at a more affordable price with capabilities that we couldn't have imagined. I mean, there was no AI section in either of the Winning with Computers books. There was a lot of other stuff, but no AI. And now that's front and center. And it just doesn't get more exciting than to think about what we might do over these next 10 years with AI-powered legal practices.
Well, time for volume 3 of your book then, I guess.
Well, I call Sherlock TAR 3.0, so maybe volume 3 is time.
When do we see Sherlock out there starting to snoop around documents?
We've got the beta version coming out December 1 of the platform. And if there are people that want to try it, reach out to me. And I'm aiming for January 15th for production version. I will tell you that we're going to test the hell out of the system. And we have a number of people, firms and organizations that want to test it. So I will not release it until I'm sure it's rock solid, but I think we can have that done by January 15th. Right in time for Legal Tech, right?
Right. See you in New York, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish. John, anything else? I've been assaulting you with a battery of questions here. Anything else you wanted to say before we wrap up?
No, it's always a pleasure to see you. And I can't wait till we can all get together again in person. But for now, we'll have to do it virtually.
We'll do it virtually. And for listeners, the website is merlindm.com.
Or merlindigitalmagic.com.
Both work. Okay. And then merlinfoundation.org for the open source foundation.
Yes. Any open source people, reach out and come help us in that mission.
Yeah.
But thank you.
John, it's been a real pleasure to speak with you and to see you and to catch up with you. And we'll do it again soon. We won't record it next time, but we'll do it again soon.
I can't wait. See you.
All right. See ya. Let me express my thanks to John Tredennick for taking the time to be with us today. We also thank our sponsors, ASG Legal Tech and Everlaw, for making today's show possible, and Populous Radio for producing and editing the show. Thanks also to our Patreon supporters, and especially our top Patreon supporter, Alan Rodriguez, CEO of the legal marketing and digital innovation company 1400.com. This is Bob Ambrogi. I hope you'll join us again for the next episode of Law Next.